There are 15 monsters in Kaiju Table Battles, 6 that you start the game with and 9 that are unlocked over time. You're going to be assembling a team of monsters with different strengths and weaknesses to take on your opponent's team, and this can be a pretty crucial decision. So let's take a look at the starting roster. Lobsteron is a solid monster with good health. He's able to push enemies with his melee, and his breath weapon inflicts shock, preventing them from moving while the effect is active. So he's good for keeping enemies away from his allies. His passive ability also makes it harder to tag him and his pals with status effects. Monster has 2 melee attacks, a fast one that slides enemies laterally, and a slow one that inflicts bleed. Because she has fairly low health and lacks ranged options, the trick is to strike opportunistically. Dillo is built for strong defensive play. In fact, his passive ability makes your attacks stronger when you're loaded up on shield buffs, which he gives to himself and to his allies through his reactions. All 3 of these monsters we just talked about follow the basic movement restriction, a single space per phase. But the next 3 are more mobile. Because the game is played on a 5x4 grid, this grants them a lot of power. The first of these is Space Demon Mantarion. They have a leap, moving into the next unoccupied space in a given direction, skipping over buildings and other monsters. Their melee is stronger, there's no self-hit to worry about, and their ranged attack is a hypnotic ray. This allows you to move an inflicted enemy, keeping them away from a vulnerable ally, bringing them closer for a deadly attack, or running them into the side of a building for extra damage. Amphisbane is a flying monster. It can move any number of spaces in a single direction, skipping over buildings and other monsters. Amphisbane has 2 breath weapons and 2 mouths to use them, and anytime it makes an attack, it can fire against 2 targets simultaneously. This mobility and multi-attack ability can exert a lot of positional pressure, covering multiple avenues of approach and attack. Dazzy and Dido are twin pillbug monsters, giving you 2 standees for the price of 1, though they share a relatively small health pool. They've got a weak breath weapon that's paired with a strong buff-granting block. Their melee attack is unique in that you can perform it from a distance, hurtling the pillbug toward the target and knocking them prone. The enemy will have to spend their next turn getting up instead of attacking. The extra mobility and flexibility afforded by an extra body is huge, but they're definitely best suited as a support for a monster with stronger offensive options. When you draft your team of monsters, you'll have to take into consideration their attacks and reactions, their health bars, their mobility, how their passive abilities interact, and even their dice numbers. Is there a lot of overlap or versatility? And you also have to keep in mind what your opponent's roster looks like and who you might recruit as an effective counter. These decisions get more complex as the roster increases in size. And in addition to unlocking those new monsters, you'll also be gaining swaps for the existing roster. Alternate versions of cards that alter some of the above considerations, sometimes quite dramatically.